there, and welcome to Watch It Played. My name is Rodney Smith, and in this video we're going to learn the 1 to 4 player game Aquatica, designed by Ivan Tazovsky and published by Arcane Wonders, who helped sponsor this video. In the depths of the ocean are hidden worlds and civilizations of sea folk seeking resources and new places to call home. To survive, you must lead your people deep into those mysterious depths where hopefully you'll have the most success establishing your newfound territory. So join me at the table and let's learn how to play. To set up, place the game board in the center of the play area. The cards with this back are the locations, which you'll shuffle into a face-down deck here, dealing 6 of these face up into the spaces for them on the right. The cards with this back are the ocean characters. Find and separate out the ones with symbols here in their top right-hand corners. These symbols represent the starting characters, and we'll use them later. Any that show this crown symbol are known as kings, and they're used in an advanced mode of play, which we'll discuss later, so these you can just return to the box for now. The rest you'll then shuffle into a face-down deck here, dealing 6 face-up into the spaces for them in this character row. These are all of the mantas, and they come in 5 different colors. Find the purple ones, which also have this symbol on their backsides, and put them in a general supply next to the board, with their other sides, known as the effect side, face up. Now each person takes one of these player boards and collects any one of the 4 sets of character cards we set aside earlier. You also collect the 4 mantas that have the matching symbol on their back side. You'll place these in front of you with their effect side face up. These are known as your trained manta. Any cards or trained manta from any unused player symbols you can just return to the box. The person who most recently dived into the sea will be the first player to take a turn, or you can just choose someone randomly. Now there's also an advanced mode that includes new goals and extra cards, but we'll cover those rules at the end. Here I'll instead focus on a standard game. And with that, the setup is over. In Aquatica, you'll be using the cards and manta you start with to help you explore new locations and depths, gathering new characters and manta to come to your aid. This will help you gain prosperity points, and if you have the most points by the end of the game, you win. Now the game is played over a series of turns, starting with the first player and then going clockwise around and around the table. And on your turn, you must perform one main action, and then you can perform any number of what are known as additional actions before and after that main action. We'll start by learning about the main action, which is simply picking any card from your hand and resolving its effect. So let's go back to the table and look at some of these. This one tells you to recruit one character. To do this, pick any one of them from this row, paying the amount of coins shown beneath it. Now, this one over here, it's free, so you can always select it, whereas this one would cost 2 coins. Now, you may have noticed there are no coin tokens in this game or ways to track money. That's because when you want to spend something, you have to generate it at that moment, and anything you don't spend is then lost. Nothing carries over from turn to turn. Now, there are a few different ways to gain coins, so let's take a look at that. Sometimes the card you play will provide you with some amount of coins along with the recruit effect. For example, here I'd have 1 coin to spend as I recruit. Mantas you have may show a bonus coin symbol like this one does, and if so, it means you can add that number of coins to what you have to spend. And then you flip that manta over. A flipped manta is said to be tired and can't be used until it's face up again, and we'll see how that happens a little bit later. You can flip any number of mantas you have during a turn, so if I had others that could generate coins, I could flip those as well. And you don't have to spend the full amount of coins you generate. But again, anything you don't spend that turn is lost. After recruiting a character, add it directly to your hand where you'll have it to use in a future main action, and then slide all other ocean characters to the left to close in the gap, and then turn over the top card from the deck to fill in the now empty spot. There is no limit to the number of characters you can recruit over the course of the game, and you can also have duplicates. After you've finished resolving the card that you've played as your main action, you then place it face up here in this area above your player board, which is meant for your discard pile. Okay, now let's look at another effect you might find on a card you play. Some, like this, will let you buy a location, and as you can see here, this provides you with 1 coin towards that cost. Locations are found in this area of the board, and we can buy any one of them that we can afford. A location's cost will be shown at the top, and locations can actually be acquired in 2 different ways, either by conquering it using this symbol, or by buying it and paying this cost in coins. When buying a location like we're doing here, we only pay attention to the coin symbol, so this costs 4 coins. After paying the cost, either from coins on the card you played or mantas you flipped, you take the collected location and insert it into any empty slot of your player board here. You have 5 slots on your board, so you can have at most 5 locations at a time. After adding a new location, slide it upwards until just the topmost circle on its left side is visible. These circles represent the various depths at this location, and whichever one is currently visible at the top is known as its top depth. Now this one shows coins, and that means during a main action, if you need more coins to spend, you can exploit this depth to gain them. Exploiting a depth means you gain what is showing on its topmost circle, and then you slide the location up 1 space to cover it, making this new space your new top depth here. When a depth circle is empty like this, it can't be exploited. In other words, this location is stuck at this depth for now, but we'll see later how it can be moved. Locations will also show other types of symbols, and we'll be sure to go over all of them by the end of this video, but just so it's clear, anytime a main action would cost you coins. In addition to gaining coins from the card you played as your main action, and any mantas you flip, you can also gain coins by exploiting a depth. So earlier when we were talking about recruiting a new character, you can help pay for that by exploiting a depth. I just didn't mention it at that time because, well, we hadn't explained locations yet. Now speaking of locations, let's look at the other way you can gain one, through conquering. For example, if we play this Legionnaire from our hand, it says that we gain 3 power, which is represented by a red trident icon. And it also says we can conquer 1 location. Again, you come to this area of the board and pick a location. But this time, don't look at the cost in coins. Instead, check where we see its cost in power. If we want this one, it costs 6, but we only have 3 power so far from the card we just played. At this time, as we just learned about, you can exploit a depth that provides power to add to what we have to spend. So in this case, I'd gain 2 additional power. You can also flip mantas that provide power, and some of these might also show additional symbols along with the bonus power. Each location comes from one of 4 different types represented by the symbols in their bottom right-hand corners. You'll find ocean volcanoes, sunken ships, Shark Bay, and decayed civilizations. If you flip a manta that provides power and shows a specific location symbol, that power can only be used to help pay for that type of location. Either way, after paying the cost, you then claim that location and put it into an empty slot of your board so that the top depth is visible. And that's conquering. But now, let's look at the scouting effect like we find here on this seahorse. To scout, take every location from this top row and put it into this discard pile. Now this row is empty right now, but that won't always be the case. Either way, you then move every location from the bottom row up into this top row, and if you have more than 4 to move, you discard any extras of your choosing and put them again into this discard pile. Then you refill the bottom row by revealing 6 new locations, so it looks something like this. Not only is scouting a way to bring new locations into play, but you'll notice any locations on this top row cost 1 less power than usual to conquer. However, they still cost the same amount if you wish to buy them with coins. So we've covered a few main actions, and there are some more we'll go over, but as a reminder, you must perform every part of a card's effects that you're able to. If there's some part you can't fulfill, that's okay. You can still play the card, but just make sure you resolve all the parts that you can. The one exception is scouting. When you see that option on a card, you can always choose not to scout if you don't want to. Now remember, along with the main action, which you must perform on your turn, you can also choose to perform any number of additional actions before and after. So let's take a look at a few of those. One option is to exploit your depths. Now we saw you could do this before to gain extra coins or powers, but sometimes you'll find other symbols here which are their own specific effects. For example, this symbol means that you can recruit 1 character completely free from the board. So no matter what your main action was, you can exploit this as well to gain a new character. Here's another additional action, and this one means that you get to take a character from your discard pile and put it back in your hand. Now to perform either of these, you resolve the effect, and then you exploit that depth by moving it up 1 space. Now as I mentioned before, empty spaces have no effect, but you can't just choose to advance past them. Instead, you have to use another ability called raising a location, which is represented by a green arrow like this. And this effect means that you pick any other location on your board and move its card upwards 1 depth. So by exploiting this ability, I can now move this up one space, and this is the only way to advance past blank spaces. Not only that, now this symbol is available for me to use to exploit in the future. Sometimes you'll be told to raise a depth more than one space. For example, here I can raise by 2. Now I could choose to either raise the same location twice or split this as I want. So for example, I could exploit this to raise by 2 and then push this one up by 1 and this one up by 1 as well. The important thing is that you must resolve these abilities if you can. I couldn't use this and only raise once, for example. And remember, if you exploit a depth for its raise ability, you must use that on other locations. You can't use it to raise the location you're getting the raise ability from. Also notice that mantas have these raise abilities on them as well, so as additional actions, you can flip one of these to raise locations. Now I should point out that when using a raise ability, any symbols that you cover up that aren't empty are lost. So when I raise this one, I don't gain the benefit of taking a card back from my discard pile. So keep these two terms in mind, raising and exploiting. Raising is done by the arrow effect, and when you raise, you ignore any symbols that get covered up during that process. Exploiting is when you want to use the top symbol at a location for its effect, which after you do, you then push that location up to cover the symbol you just used. Exploiting a symbol like this means that you pick any other location and then immediately raise it as far as it can go. Now, whether through that effect or by raising a location a bit at a time, once you've covered up the last space of a location, the location cannot be raised further. But no matter how it happens, as soon as a location is fully raised, if it shows a wild mantis symbol here in the center, you immediately collect a matching one from the supply beside the board. This is now yours to use, and you always collect it ready side up, so that means you could even use it during this turn. All right, now let's look at the wave teller. This has two different options to pick from as your main action. We know about the second effect. This allows us to raise by 2. But instead, we also have this new symbol, which allows us to score. To do this, you must have a fully raised location, which you then take out of its slot and place face down into your scoring pile here. This will earn you points at the end of the game, as we'll see. You can also score a location by exploiting a score effect like we see here. And that allows you, again, to remove a fully raised location and add it to your score pile. The final card we should go over is Matrona. This symbol at the beginning means that you return all the ocean characters from your discard pile back into your hand. You'll now have these to use on future turns again. Next, we're told to unflip all of our tired mantas so their effect sides are face up. This will make them available to be used again. Now, as it says here, after using Matrona, you do not discard it. This will always stay in your hand throughout the entire game. However, if you have 2 players, it does mention here that you now discard the leftmost character in the ocean row. Then you shift all of the cards over to fill in the gap and reveal a new one. And that covers all the effects you'll encounter. And after taking a main action and any additional ones you wish, your turn ends and the next player in clockwise order goes. Now right here, I'd like to stop and give you an example of what a turn could look like, because when you're taking additional actions in that main action, you can combo lots of things together, and I think it might help to see how that can work. Let's say I know I'm going to need some extra coins for my main action. Maybe I start my turn by performing a raise as an additional action by flipping this manta in order to move this location past this empty space, where now a coin bonus will be available to me. Then as my main action, I play this, which allows me to scout. I don't want to scout, and this is the one main action you can skip, so I will. It also gives me 2 coins and allows me to buy 1 location. I want to buy this one from the main board, but it costs 4 coins and I only have 2 so far. So I'll exploit this depth I just gained access to get the other 2 coins I need. Now I can take this location and add it to my board. But I'm not quite done yet. I now want to exploit the location I just bought in order to raise each of these locations by 1 each. Then I exploit this location to raise this location all the way to the top. And then I gain this wild manta, which I add to my personal supply. Then I use that manta right away to raise a location by 1, and I'll raise this one. Then I exploit this location, which allows me to score one of my completed locations. Between these two, this one's worth the most points, so I slip it out, and I add it directly to my score pile. And then I sit back and wait for my opponents to congratulate me on such a combo-rific turn. While playing, you also need to keep an eye on the 4 different goals found in this area of the board. For example, this one means that as soon as you're holding 8 ocean characters in your hand, you've completed it. When you complete a goal, if you want, you can claim it. To do this, take any one of your trained manta. That is, any that have your symbol on the back, not wild manta gained from the supply, and then place it into the leftmost available spot of the related goal. It doesn't matter if the manta was on its ready or tired side, and at the end of the game, you'll then be able to score the points directly above it. At most, you can only score each goal once, and that means, at most, there'll be 4 mantas in each goal's row. The final 5th space is included here for use in future expansions. You accomplish this goal by filling your board with 5 locations. For this goal, you need to have 3 or more locations in your scoring pile. And this goal means that you need to have 2 or more wild mantas in your supply. Remember, you don't have to claim a goal right away. Maybe you don't want to give up the manta yet. But you can still claim that goal in a future turn as long as you still satisfy it at that time. And those are all the things that can happen on a turn. And turns will keep being taken until one of 3 possible endgame conditions occur. As soon as any one of them happen, the current turn is completed, and then every player, including the one who just caused the end of the game to be triggered, will take one more turn. The end of the game is triggered either by one player having a manta on each of the 4 goals, or if the location or character deck is empty. As soon as any one of those things are true, the end of the game is triggered. And after the final turns are taken, it's time to total your final score. First, gain 1 point for every card in your hand, but don't gain any points for those in your discard pile. Then gain the points above your manta on the goal tracks, and finally, total all of the prosperity points shown here in the bottom corner of all locations in your scoring pile. You don't gain any points for locations still in the slots of your board. The player with the most points wins. In the case of a tie, the tied player with the most manta in their reserve wins, and if there's still a tie, the tied player last in the turn order wins. Now when you're ready, you can add in some additional elements to future games to mix things up. During the setup, you can shuffle these double-sided goal tokens and place a random one with random side face up on each of the other pre-printed goals on the board. Now each time you play, you'll have different combinations of goals to consider, and you'll find each one explained here in the rulebook if you have any questions. Also during this setup, you can use the cards with this crown symbol on the top. The basic way is to give the first player the one labeled 1, the second player the one labeled 2, and so on based on your number of players, returning any extras back to the box. Alternatively, you can draft the kings using the instructions here in the rulebook to end up with random ones when you play. In either case, the king is a card you can play like any other ones, and it counts towards the goal for having 8 characters in hand. And if you're holding it in your hand at the end of the game, it counts as a point just like any other character you're holding. If you're using the kings, then at the end of the game, if there's a tie for most prosperity points and most mantas, then the final tiebreaker instead becomes the player who's holding the king with the lowest value. The game also comes with rules for solo play, but those I'll leave for you to discover on your own. Otherwise, that's everything you need to know to play Aquatica. If you have any questions about anything you saw here, feel free to put them in the comments below, and I'll gladly answer them as soon as I get a chance. You'll also find forums for discussion, pictures, other videos, and lots more over on the games page at Board Game Geek, and I'll put a link to that in the description below. And if you found this video helpful, please consider giving it a like, subscribing, and clicking that little bell icon so you get notification anytime we post a new video. But until next time, thanks for watching.